A new ProPublica report is detailing 3 decades of lavish gifts Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas has received. 3 decades. According to the report, since 1991, several billionaires and executives who share Thomas's views have gifted him with at least 38 vacations, 26 private jet flights, and a dozen VIP passes to sporting events. Many of these gifts were never disclosed by Thomas, which ProPublica quotes ethics experts as saying may be a violation of the law, especially when it comes to the yacht cruises and sports tickets. One of the biggest gifters is Texas real estate billionaire Harlan Crow. That name we had heard before. Covering this, among several paid vacations, Crow also bought a house from Thomas's mother and paid his grandnephew's tuition. Thomas said the trips were personal hospitality from a close friend. The New York Times also compiled a list of wealthy businessmen who Thomas appears to have met after he became a Supreme Court justice. They include a former top executive at Berkshire Hathaway and an oil baron. According to ProPublica, with the exception of Crow, their names have never been listed in Thomas's financial disclosures. Back in April, the High Court sent the Senate Judiciary Committee a copy of their ethics practices, which was signed by all 9 justices. It explains that the justices follow rules prohibiting them from accepting gifts so frequently that, quote, a reasonable person would believe that the public office is being used for private gain. But as ProPublica notes, what is defined as a gift is ambiguous. NBC News has reached out to Justice Thomas for comment, but so far has not heard back. Claire McCaskill, I don't even know where to begin with this. Maybe you could do a little better than me, having worked in the legal profession.
Yeah, first, everybody needs to understand that this would be a gross violation of the rules for anyone in the public sector, with the exception of the United States Supreme Court. Federal judges, elected officials, all of these would, any one of these trips would not being disclosed would be a serious problem. So they have a crisis here, and the Roberts Court is going to have to make a decision. Either the legacy of the Roberts Court is going to be that they looked the other way from serious ethical transgressions. And this idea that they don't have any accountability to Congress, Congress funds them. Congress has to confirm them. That is in the Constitution. So the idea that somehow once they get the job, they never have to pay attention to Congress again or follow any rules other than the ones they make for themselves is just wrong. And what Clarence Thomas doesn't get here is that he is absolutely permanently damaging the institution he purports to care about, because he has looked past a very important tenet. If you're in public office, and particularly if you're a judge, the appearance of impropriety. He can say all he wants to about, oh, well, these are my friends, and of course I didn't do anything because of these trips or these tickets to skyboxes at big sporting. I didn't do, and who knows? Maybe he did, maybe he didn't. But the appearance of impropriety is so crystal clear here. And that is what a reasonable person sees. So even under the rules they sent over to the Senate, he is violating those rules consistently and constantly during his time on the bench. And if nothing is done about it, it's just going to further erode the legitimacy of this court.
So, Sam Stein, I mean, just to back me up here, unless I'm wrong, I don't know how you can't be compromised when you're being given lavish gifts. I mean, I'm going to put that in quotes because it feels like it's in exchange for something. I mean, personal hospitality might be dinner, banana bread, not tuition, jet flights. vacations, yacht cruises costing hundreds of thousands of dollars. How is this man not compromised in his ability to make an objective decision? Are we all joking ourselves here? This is not just a joke. It's an assault on our system and on the Supreme Court and what it is supposed to be and the credibility in it. I mean, these are valuing millions of dollars, ultimately. This is over decades. How is this man not completely compromised?
Well, first of all, I can be bought off with a good banana bread, so don't underestimate that. Secondarily is, I want to credit ProPublica for incredible journalism here. And I would also say, just putting my editor's hat on for a second, I don't think this is the final iteration of the story. We've already gone through different chapters. It started with Harlan Crow in one trip, and it's gone to this. And what I would think is the next chapter, this is just me speculating here, but, 38 paid-for vacations by 4 individual mega donors. To me, that sounds like someone is coordinating a vacation system for Clarence Thomas. You and I have planned family vacations. You don't just, randomly call some donor and say, hey, I got the slot open. Can you pay for my, trip out west on your jet? Someone clearly, or at least I would think, is organizing these types of outings and maybe even matching a donor with the event. And that, to me, is where the issue goes next, is who is doing the organization around this? And are they the ones who actually have a stake before the justice? Now, ProPublica in their piece today noted that none of these 4 businessmen, none of the 3, putting aside Harlan Crow, had overt cases before the court at the time that they were sponsoring these vacations, which on the surface suggests, okay, maybe there's nothing wrong here because they didn't have intersecting business. My question as an editor here would be, okay, well, who is helping organize these events? And does that entity have business before the court?
Yeah, looking into all of that, Claire, just curious, putting Ginni Thomas aside for a second, there's that whole part of the story there and her text messages to Mark Meadows and her friend, husband, whatever. Let's just leave that aside for a second. Just this information in itself, if you dig deeper, as Sam has suggested, and it is found that there is just no question that his decision-making is compromised, what happens? Should he step down? What would you suggest?
Well, certainly, I would be all in favor of him stepping down. I do think the Senate at this point has a real obligation to try to get more information from these billionaires. And Sam's right. What is Clarence Thomas sitting in his office one day and he gets a call from Tony Novelli and says, hey, I just was thinking about you today, and why don't I hook you up with a really fancy vacation for you and Jenny? How does this happen? And is the Federalist Society anywhere in this? Is Leo, our friend who was painted in the picture with Clarence Thomas that hangs at Harlan Crow's vacation home, Leo, who has masterminded this wide network of young lawyers, is going back into law school, who know if they want to be a federal judge when the Republicans are in charge, they need to belong to the Federalist Society. And the same group, the same man who gave the list to Trump of who he could appoint to the Supreme Court. Are they involved in this? It would not surprise me if Leo was the matchmaker. Okay, we're going to get Clarence another really fancy $100,000 vacation. Who are we going to call to do it? So I think Sam's right. There is a lot more digging that needs to be done here, and it either needs to be done by really good journalists like those at ProPublica that are doing this great job, or by the United States Senate Committee on the Judiciary.
Yeah, I think these are really, really important questions. And who else is involved and connected? Absolutely.